If you haven't seen Widows, please pause this video and check out my previous video instead. And if you have, well,
Let's go.
More illegal than nepotism?
Well, nepotism isn't illegal. It's actually celebrated. This is Chicago.
my immediate interest in making a video essay about Widows was its extensive use of the city of Chicago as a character. The location as character trope is an overused cliche in describing movies, but when it's accurate, it lights up the film extensively. Widows is one of those films where the location permeates every beat of the story. The movie begins with a ferocious character introduction, and then takes an unexpected turn. Immediately after the opening titles, instead of going back to the four women we've just met, or their dead husbands, we get two scenes thoroughly setting up the Mulligan versus Manning election for alderman of the 18th Ward. On a literal level, Mulligan and Manning are essential to the plot due to their direct involvement in the heist to come. But at this point, we don't know that. What the film does here is tell us that this election and the setting involved in it is extremely important to pay attention to. It's only at the end of the scene that any connection to Harry Rawlins and the heist is made clear.
Harry Rawlins is dead.
What are they gonna do with us?
He took our money with him.
What makes both men unsympathetic is that they both only want to win the election for their personal gain. Manning sees this victory as a way to escape the system he's stuck in and make money in an honest way. Mulligan sees this as a necessary step toward a more prominent political career. In one of the most stunning moments, Mulligan enters his car, and in an unbroken shot, we are taken from the point of his pitifully small rally for women of color to his house. The dialogue inside the car is all about Mulligan and the larger commentary on the life of a politician behind closed doors, but the visual gives us a literal sense of Mulligan's geographic proximity to where he is running for office and how quickly the city's atmosphere changes. In terms of political issues, the most discussed point of contention is Mulligan's involvement in train infrastructure. This is intentional. Chicago is a city where the L train is vital to its image. McQueen makes this clear a few ways. He has one incredible shot connecting the L train location to the hideout Harry's gang uses. In the script, Mulligan is criticized that the expensive train extension in no way serves the people of the 18th Ward. Visually, this is enforced. Belle, the only protagonist who works in the 18th Ward, is shown riding the bus from her poor community of Lawndale, running to catch it in desperation of finding work. Mulligan's train is of no use to connecting people to work opportunities. None of the other characters are ever seen taking the bus. The only time characters are shown riding the train is when Linda and Alice head to downtown in hopes of finding the architecture firm behind the blueprints. Essentially, the train in this movie is shown as something that is only relevant to the world of downtown, and not to the 18th Ward. Speaking to economic status, Veronica, the wealthiest of the female protagonists, is never shown using public transit. Instead, she uses a private car with a driver. And yet, in multiple shots, the train in the background reminds us its prominent place in the city. Chicago is a city noted for its stunning architecture. McQueen gives us a great chance to appreciate this in the scene between Harry and Mulligan, with the glimmering skyline as a backdrop, a representation of how abstract and removed actual life in the city is for both of these affluent characters, in their own ways, exploiting the city for personal gain. The glimmering side of the city is embodied in the character of David, the wealthy architect who hires Alice as a steady call girl. In their first scene together, he impresses her with his knowledge of the city and its buildings. The casting here is actually quite interesting. Actor Lukas Haas found early fame as a child actor in Witness, another great movie. More importantly, he was a member of Leonardo DiCaprio's infamous squad of young actors in the 90s who were competing for the same types of roles and having the time of their lives in the process, as covered by the tabloids. The real-life persona fits well for casting someone that pays his way to spend time with beautiful women. Even a minor character in this film serves to enhance the overall setting and show another side of the city. Ultimately, the locations are here to serve the characters. While the first two Mulligan and Manning scenes may seem like our first clear introduction to the film's setting, we've actually been taken through it already via the setup of our protagonists. Our main characters are given separate worlds to inhabit that speak to the magnitude of Chicago and its inhabitants. Linda's store, where we meet her in a perfectly executed oneer, roots her in an area of Chicago called Little Village, a Latinx neighborhood known for shops just like this one on 26th Street. Alice's apartment may not show us anything about the location. It's later revealed that she's a descendant of Polish immigrants, but this isn't so clearly conveyed here. Almost like a magician, McQueen draws us in with close-ups revealing first the abusive dynamic between Alice and her husband, but when we finally get a wide shot to establish their world, it speaks volumes. The interior shows us what you might call a poor man's idea of a rich man. She and her husband are people who got rich very quickly, and therefore spent it on ostentatious displays of wealth. This is the starting point for Alice's transformation. When we visit her apartment later, it is notably bare, further pointing at the materialism she has to exit from to grow up. I've pointed out locations that text her Chicago as integral to the story, and I've pointed out locations that develop the characters specifically. And there's one location that manages to do both: Veronica's apartment. Veronica is a complicated character, given her temperament is stoic throughout the movie. We do see her break down and cry, but it's always in privacy. In public, she always carries herself as strong and emotionless. Therefore, in order to show her character growth throughout the movie, Steve McQueen must rely almost entirely on the visual tactics, something he has shown mastery for before. This is why in order to talk about Veronica, we have to not only talk about her location, but the color palettes and shot framing that complements it. Veronica is introduced as a woman whose world is protected by glass. Despite her established background as a teacher, visually, Veronica is shown as a woman almost trapped by a world of affluence, intentionally oblivious to her husband's dirty work and how they can afford luxury. When we meet Veronica in her apartment, she is almost entirely shown through reflections. There are 11 shots of Veronica in her apartment in the first 20 minutes. 3 of these shots are of Veronica safely in bed with Harry or remembering Harry. At all other times, Veronica is shot either through glass or a reflection. The very first exception where she is shown without a reflection is this one. When Jamal knocks on her door, it's as if the illusion of safety is permanently shattered. This visual motif of Veronica losing innocence, shown through glass, develops and then ultimately pays off much later in the film. In the opening sequence, Veronica is shown lovingly drinking with her husband in the shower. Notice our vantage point. We see Veronica through the glass, as this illusion of safety is still completely present. When Veronica visits Amanda at her apartment, and Olivia sniffs out that Harry may actually be alive after all, everything Veronica thought she knew is permanently altered. And in this moment, we return to the exact same sequence, and now we see it from within the glass. No longer protected by the illusion, Veronica's memory is much different than it was before. There's a second component to this development that goes hand in hand with the locations and the reflections, and that's the choices made in color palette. There are 3 colors used to characterize Veronica: black, white, and red. The black and white colors are the primary palette from which her world is built. There's an obvious racial component to these colors, but the bleakness of black and white also represents the absence of color and perhaps happiness in the rest of Veronica's life. Her need to be externally strong is shown throughout the film. The other women mock this. It's unlikely that they know that Veronica has experienced the tragedy of losing a child, through circumstances particularly relevant to Chicago, and against the backdrop of Obama's Hope campaign, another nod to the location. The most telling way this is done is through costume design. Over the course of the film, Veronica has 28 costume changes. Every single costume Veronica wears in the film is black, white, or some combination of both, with some key exceptions. In the sequence where Veronica goes to recruit Amanda to be their driver, only to stumble across her husband's secret, she's given a bright red outfit. This is a striking choice, made clear it's deliberate by being the sole example of a bright colored costume. From a cinematic perspective, it subconsciously tells us to sit up and pay attention because this scene is about to give us the biggest twist. And from a thematic standpoint, it introduces the missing color from Veronica's life. As mentioned, Veronica's apartment is defined by black and white. After this scene, she enters the room of Marcus, her dead son, and red is revealed to be the color that represents Marcus. The entire apartment is black and white, except for a bright red chair, showing us where Marcus used to be. We cut to a flashback, and Marcus is shown driving a bright red car and holding a bright red box. Red is a vibrant color of life, and it's also the color of blood, and therefore, it's the best color to represent what's missing from Veronica's life, and what causes her relationship with her husband to permanently fall apart. With this heavy knowledge, we can realize how this event has permanently affected Veronica and looms over her every day. For good measure, we're given one more visual symbol of this. Veronica is shown in her apartment with a red light cast over her, the only other sign of this color looming over her life. Red is also an opposing color to blue, which is the color used to represent Harry. The apartment decor may be black and white, but the lighting is dominated by blue, and Harry's money is what allowed the two of them to live in prosperity. Another exception to Veronica's black and white wardrobe is the scene where she's mourning the loss of Harry. She is shown wearing a blue shirt, which is likely meant to represent Harry, given in every scene he is in, he's either wearing blue or lit with blue light. The blue color is also used to connect Harry to Marcus, and it may be the reason why a blue car crosses Veronica right after she learns Harry is alive. When Veronica first goes to find the safety deposit box with Harry's final heist plans, a great visual metaphor is hiding in plain sight. The little fisherman, a blue statue, matches Harry's color, as well as his later location on the fishing boat with Mulligan, is shrouded in glass, just like their apartment, and surrounded by ankle-sized white animals, which may or may not be connected to Olivia the dog. In fact, when Veronica first visits the hideout, following Harry's footsteps, her outfit is an ambiguous combination of black and blue. And when she and Harry face off in the end, and both fall to the ground, their colors are more clearly shown, Harry in blue and Veronica in black. This previously discussed city development culminates right before this in the final heist. The safe that the widows have to break into is behind a map of old Chicago. Maps like this are symbols of tradition, history, and patriarchy, and a time when all four of these women would be subservient. So along with being another direct reminder of our locale, it gives them a visual to break through. And to top it off, it's plated in glass, a key visual motif for Veronica. The combination of location and color are ultimately what take us to Veronica's conclusion and show her transformation. In the film's final scene, Alice and Veronica coincidentally end up at the same diner. We see Alice first, wearing a tan coat with a prominent red collar. Then we reveal Veronica, also wearing tan for the first time, and surrounded by the red color scheme of the diner. It is here where Veronica is going to be able to let go of her loss of Marcus. Her last move is to give the money she has in his memory. And from here, we exit the diner, and this is where all the visual motifs pay off in a single shot. Alice exits first. Throughout the movie, Alice has been on her own character arc of maturation, from a woman being pushed around by her mother and husband without any sense of control. Veronica entering her life is her first step toward independence, and Veronica is established as a maternal figure to Alice. And in this scene, when Veronica shows up unexpectedly, she actually mistakes her for her mother.
Mom? It's Veronica.
Veronica catches Alice's attention. The fact that they're both wearing tan establishes this overall connection, and Alice's hint of red, connecting her to Marcus, shows Veronica's maternal affection for Alice. We pan back to Veronica. The diner and the life trapped within glass is now behind her. She smiles for the first time in the movie. She is out of the glass and no longer dominated by black and white, a visually transformed character right before our eyes. And for good measure, the last action on screen is the city's trademark L train hurtling by. One final reminder of how all the film's action takes place within the dynamic city of Chicago.